Hello, my esteemed viewers. Welcome to another new narration series. Lately, I have been thinking about the sheer amount of stories that have been written and passed around the internet over the past 20 years or so. So much has no doubt been lost to time, waiting to be experienced again through new eyes. Hence, I bring you this new series. In each video, we will be exploring some old school fanfiction written by various authors across the internet and across time. The time frame I've chosen to focus on ranges between 1999 and 2010. For this first installment, all stories have been found on a website called fanfiction.net. I have gathered a handful of stories, all under 1,000 words, to provide an idea of what the world of fanfiction was like in decades past. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and get ready to take a dive into some vintage stories from days gone by. This first story brings us all the way back to 1999, a time where I myself was a teeny tiny little toddler. The story itself is a clever mashup of Metal Sonic, of the world famous Sonic series by Sega, and the now lost to the ages Windows 95. Shout out to any of you who remember it. I used it briefly as a child. This story was written by NetRaptor, a seasoned writer with over 80 stories written on fanfiction.net alone. Still actively writing today, NetRaptor was gracious enough to give me permission to spotlight this story for you all. If you'd like to see more for yourself, you can check out the links in the description for each of the fanfiction author pages, including NetRaptor's, so be sure to do that. Do not adjust your browser. We are in control. You have just crossed over into the realm of the unknown, a land of shadows and a lot of weirdness. You have just entered the what if zone. We offer for your consideration Metal Sonic, an assassin robot. His home is the city of Robotropolis. He is known for his cunning, his speed, and his red eyes. But this robot is about to enter the what if zone. He is about to have Windows 95 installed on his operating system. It all began when Bell requested a meeting with Robotnik. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the alien software beamed to them from another planet. It had every indication of being more advanced than anything they had had at the time. "Have you tested it?" Robotnik asked, watching Bell narrowly. The android shook his head. "No, sir, not yet. I have been reluctant to install it to the main computer. You see, sir, it has a disclaimer. The disclaimer has 2 yards of fine print at the bottom." "Ah," said Robotnik, leaning back in his chair. "That could be a problem." There was a moment of silence. Then, "Try it on a robot." "What robot, sir? SWAT bots are too basic." Robotnik's eyes lit up oddly. "Install it on Metal Sonic's system. He could tell you all you wanted to know." It was not long before Metal Sonic was connected to the Robotropolis mainframe, the software downloading into his memory banks. "This is a big problem," he growled to Bell, who was overseeing the operation. "We have been here 2 hours. It is 98% done, and then has to unzip. I won't have much disk space left at this rate." The computer screen above them said, 100% done, unpacking migration files. Mecha stood quietly, letting the program install itself. Suddenly, he lifted one hand in salute and cried, "All hail Bill Gates." At the same time, the mainframe computer played a cutesy little chime sound. Bell stared at him, then up at the system status screen. Mecha's memory was 50 bytes free and dropping. "Stop the download," Bell yelped. "It's a virus or something." "No," Metal Sonic replied. "It's okay. This is a remarkable program." His voice was slowing down, stretching out. "Windows 95. I am more efficient than ever." With that, he collapsed to the floor. The system status screen said, "Insufficient disk space. Older software found. Delete, yes or no?" Yes, Windows 95 proved to be a double-edged sword. Even though it provided Metal Sonic with hundreds of new options, it took all of his disk and memory space, ruthlessly deleting all in its path. Soon he would be a slave, a walking Windows 95 logo. For example, Several days after Mecha had acquired his new program, he embarked on his usual patrol of the city. A window popped up on his screen that said, "You've got mail. View now?" "Okay," he replied. The message came up. "All robot alert. Priority hedgehog spotted in the northwest sector. Bring him down." He closed the message and headed in that direction. "Load weapons," he told his computer. Instead of obeying, Windows replied with, "File name not found." He opened the start menu, selected Programs, went to Accessories, then opened Weapons. The program began to load, occupying all free space. "Warning," his drive control said, "low disk space." He shut the warning down, but narrowly avoided coasting into a wall. With low memory, his steering would go crooked. Mecha rounded a corner and nearly collided with Sonic, who was coming from the opposite direction. "Hiya, Mecha," Sonic said, dodging around him. "Tag, you're it!" As the robot whirled to follow him, the weapons program finished loading. He selected Laser Cannon. The panels on his lower arm opened, and the laser appeared. Before he could fire, however, a message came up that said, "This program has performed an illegal operation and will be terminated." Cursing inwardly, he launched the program again. Sonic was 20 feet ahead, jogging along, peering down the side streets for SWAT bots. Mecha closed in on him, steadily and silently. His enemy didn't notice him until he was almost within pouncing distance. Then Sonic yelped and leaped to the side. Metal Sonic moved with him, and Windows, hampered by lack of disk space, locked up. Sonic fled the premises as Mecha froze in midair, arms outstretched. A few seconds later, he clunked to the ground, one hand fumbling for internal reset. Then he lay there for approximately 20 minutes as Windows 95 rebooted. When it finally did, he bounded to his feet, saluted to no one in particular, and yelled, "All hail Bill Gates!" Without knowing it, Pac-Bell and Robotnik had destroyed Metal Sonic. He had become enslaved and devalued by Windows 95. Never again would he work properly. Deleting the program would do no good, for it would take down all other software with it. Mecha only survived a few months after that. When Windows 95 crashed, his software was unsalvageable. He was dumped in the junkyard and forgotten. So if Windows 95 is installed on your machine, be very careful. His fate could very well be yours. But it was not a total loss. The Freedom Fighters discovered Windows 95 and installed it to the Robotropolis mainframe. Total victory was theirs. The next story was written in 2001 by Youngster, who appears to have written just 2 fanfictions during their time on fanfiction.net. Unfortunately, they appear to have been inactive as of the last 20 years. So, yeah, there's that, literally since 2001. The fanfiction itself is about TV wrestling, which was definitely huge at the time. I remember watching some clips myself. The year 2005, when the world has become an endless hole of evil, where the wrestlers that people hated on TV rule over them, and the only people who can stop them are the wrestlers that we love. The Rock, The Undertaker, Triple H, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Lita, versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kane, Rikishi, Devon Dudley, Bubba Ray Dudley, and China. Let the battle begin. Washington, D.C., the White House. The dark halls of the White House were littered with paper and rubble from the broken building. Suddenly, they are filled with the sounds of footsteps. The doors to the Oval Office open, and the moonlight shines upon the ruins of a once wonderful and beautiful room. In each door, there stands a figure. In one door stands a man no taller than 7'1". He walks in. A masked, grotesque face, and it's very obvious that he works out. Every inch of his body, except for his left arm, was covered in red and black. He was huge, mean, and extremely hideous. His name was Kane. Another shady character stands, but there is a huge difference. It is a woman. Muscles cover every inch of her body. Clad in a black dominatrix outfit, along with her platform boots. Her jet black hair cascades down her back and sways as she moves towards the special room. She is strong, lovely and very intelligent. This woman's name is Joni Laurer. She is also known as China. In the widest door stood their commander, though he wasn't as big as the other two. He held the one thing they both wanted, the WWF Championship. He had cold blue eyes that could freeze you if you stared at him, a trimmed brown goatee, and a silver earring in his ear. He wore blue jeans, his black t-shirt with an emblem on it, and a pair of cowboy boots. Did I mention he was bald and had a very short fuse? This man always had a chip on his shoulder and was ready to blow up in somebody's face. Stone Cold Steve Austin was ready for business. "Okay, Steve, we're here. What do you want?" China asked with an attitude in her voice. "Yeah, I have a state to run," Kane said. He was the governor of the hottest state in the USA, Texas. "I believe they can go without you for a couple of days. You do know they hate your guts, right?" Stone Cold said with a devilish grin. "Anyway, why I have gathered you two wonderful people here today could make you very powerful." "What are you aiming at, Steve?" China asked as she brushed a piece of her hair out of her face. Stone Cold gave them both an evil grin and chuckled to himself as he took a seat in the president's chair. He reached over in a drawer and pulled out a folder. "This is what I'm aiming at, China." As he told her that, he took out 3 photos. One with everyone's arch enemy, The Rock, The Undertaker, and Lita. What could the evil plan be that Stone Cold has for our heroes? And will China and Kane join him in his evil doings? To be continued. Now, we're going to blast forward halfway to the present, stopping in 2010. Some like to say that this was the golden age of the internet. I definitely have fond memories of this era, as I was a teenager at the time. And it was definitely a good era for the internet, that is for sure. But anyway, the story takes place in the world of Adventure Time, a series beloved by kids and young adults alike, even to this day. It was written by Claire Is My Little Piggy and appears to have been a one-off. As such, the user has been inactive since 2010 on the site. "Yo, Finn, check this out, man," yelled Jake the dog. "Hey, man, what's up?" "I just found this fluffy caterpillar, dude. What should we name it?" "Aw, Jake, that's mathematical. Name it Charlie." "Charlie!" shouted Jake in an awkwardly high sing-songy voice. I didn't do the voice right, but whatever. Meanwhile, Princess Bubblegum, allured by Jake's awkwardly high sing-song of Charlie, appeared over the horizon. Not yet seen by Jake and Finn, she dialed up Ricardio on her walkie-talkie. "Ricardio," she whispered, "now is the perfect time for the surprise. Are you sure everything is in place, though? Because I have to be sure before I do this, man." "Yes, Princess, of course. Can we start?" "Yes, Ricardio. Operation Fluffy Charlie is now officially launched. Do this well, Ricardio. Do this well." Princess Bubblegum concluded with a serious look on her face. By this time, Finn and Jake are doing a happy joy tribal dance around Charlie when suddenly, Charlie grows into a humongo birthday cake. "Whoa!" Jake says as he stares mesmerized at the growing Charlie. Soon, however, he becomes hypnotized. "Jake, this is creepy. This birthday cake has a picture of Ricardio on it." "Wait, that is Ricardio." "Oh, poop. You weren't supposed to see me. Ha ha. Well, this is your birthday surprise. While Princess Bubblegum and I were discussing the planetoid cycle, we came up with this lovely present." "Oh, thanks, Ricardio. Wait, it's not my birthday." "I don't trust Ricardio. Remember the last time he was here?" Shudder. "No, it's your half-birthday, silly." "No, that was last week." By this time, Ricardio is growing angry. "No, it's your half-birthday. Just eat the cake, Finn, and nobody gets hurt." In the distance, Princess Bubblegum is oblivious, as she's boiling hot oil over a fire. Oh, Finn will be so excited. He loves dipping fondue in hot boiling oil. Meanwhile, Ricardio is growing frustrated. "Arrgh, Finn won't eat the cake. It's supposed to drug him, and then I can throw him in the hot oil and get rid of him once and for all. Then the princesses will be mine, all mine, and not the stupid Ice King's. Wah ha 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 ha." No, Ricardio, I won't eat the cake. What did you do with Princess Bubblegum? Oh, she's just over there, boiling some oil for your fondue. How nice, thanks Ricardio, but I still don't trust you. Fine, I'll have to force you to eat this cake. Ricardio then proceeds to push the cake over onto Finn, but Finn dodges it. Jake, in his hypnotic state, is not so lucky. He is lying there on the ground covered in cake, and Finn is devastated. No! Ricardio, you've gone too far! Finn whips out his magical sword. The light is blinding, though, and Ricardio cannot stand his magicalness. Finn, put it away! The light, it blinds me! No, Ricardio, not until you promise to leave and never come back. Oh, fine, fine. Just put the light away. Ricardio proceeds to run off into the distance, screaming. Jake, wake up, buddy. Wake up, pal. Yum, cake. Gurgle, snore. Whew, you're alive. That was a close one. Just then, Princess Bubblegum comes running up. Finn, I finished the fondue. Come see. Wait, where did Ricardio go? Princess, how many times do I have to tell you, Ricardio is evil? I know, Finn, but he seems so nice. He made that cake and everything. He even added a special ingredient. It was called vanilla-flavored sleeping potion. It smelled delicious. The end. The fourth story was written by yet another seasoned writer, Spice of Life, with 50 stories written on fanfiction.net. Unfortunately, Spice of Life seems to be inactive on the site as of 2010, like many of our other authors here. I guess it shouldn't be surprising that we find so many retired writers after all, looking back so long ago. Still kind of a bummer though. But I am digressing, so the story for this spotlight brings us back in time a bit again. Back to 2004. Into the life of the cult classic Danny Phantom of 2000's Nickelodeon. Keep your eyes open. What you see may surprise you, and what you don't see can hurt you. Danny awoke with a start. It was just a dream, he told himself after surveying his surroundings and confirming that he was still in his room. One heck of a dream. He couldn't remember the exact details of the dream. In fact, he couldn't remember anything instead of that one haunting message. Keep your eyes open. What you see may surprise you, and what you don't see can hurt you. It sounded like something his sister Jazz would say, after announcing that his parents' constant ghost searches were spiraling him down a round of paranoia and suspicion. Checking his clock, he sighed heavily and laid his head back down on the bed. 3:46 in the morning, and he was wide awake. Figuring that he had no reason not to go to sleep, he closed his eyes. After all, the dream wasn't particularly nerve-wracking, and it wasn't a nightmare. Besides, he wasn't looking forward to falling asleep during chemistry class and having Mr. Lance give him detention. Again. Sam was in his arms. They were staring into each other's eyes. As they leaned in closer, she started to morph into a beast, her skin cracking and her hair falling in clumps to the floor. Her eyes fell out, and she cackled. What you see is what you get. What you see is what you get. Do you like what you see? It's what you're going to get. And with that, she crumpled into dust in his hands. Panting and sweating, Danny thumped onto his floor after waking up with a scream. Pushing himself off of the floor, he slumped back into his bed. He doubted he would get any more sleep tonight. Danny. Silence. Danny. A slight snore escaped his nose as a puddle of drool began to form under his mouth. Danny. Huh? What? Danny exclaimed, lifting his head up from the cafeteria table, his hands slipping in the drool and his head landing with a thud back onto the hard table. Oh, man, he moaned, wiping the spit off of his hair and shirt and lifting his head back up to stare at Sam and Tucker. Man, you look like a zombie, Tucker declared, laughing at Danny's bloodshot eyes, pale skin, and semi-conscious state. I didn't... Yeah, Danny mumbled, his eyes closing and then opening again. He stared at them, eyes unfocused, and asked, Tuck, when did you get 3 eyes? Danny, are you feeling okay? Sam asked him, concerned. Already today he had fallen asleep 4 times, not counting when he had almost set the lab on fire in science class. Plus, he had called her Tucker during English class. Obviously, he had either gone insane or a ghost had possessed him. Either that, or he could have just been tired. "Yeah, man, you're acting weird. You almost set the science lab on fire," Tucker told him, tapping him on the shoulder. "Fire?" Danny sprung out of his chair. "Where?" "Danny." Sam put her hands on his shoulder to make him sit down. "There's no fire. What's wrong with you anyways?" "I just..." He yawned, sighing deeply. "Didn't get much sleep last night." "Yeah, I figured that much." Tucker rolled his eyes. "Can I have your beef?" "What kept you awake?" Sam asked, interested. He hadn't called them over to fight any psychopathic ghosts last night, but maybe it was the box ghost again. He probably had figured he could handle it. Just a nightmare, nothing big," Danny assured them, forking his beef over to Tucker's tray. "Well then, since you're awake now," Sam said, "you can listen to my practice protests against doing science fair projects on innocent lab mice. They are demeaning the rats by doing experiments on them, and..." She peered over at Danny, whose head was face down in his rice medley surprise. She groaned and thumped her head down on the table. Our final story for this video brings us to 2006, almost halfway between the published dates of the last two pieces. This fanfiction is about the absolutely iconic hero we all know and love, Batman. It was written by Scoelia Saith, who has over 25 stories on fanfiction.net as of 2014. Scoelia has been inactive since then, however. Batman thought back over the past years. He couldn't help it. His brain worked constantly on overdrive, and after this evening, he couldn't help but compare. It was his fault. He always let his family down when they needed him. He hurt them because he wanted to hurt himself, to make sure he could still feel pain, to make sure he was still real, still vulnerable, not a phantom created by the Bat. He was too weak to defend his parents, standing there helpless and alone in the crime alley as the pearls rolled into the gutter, the gunshots ringing in his ears. Where he had sworn to himself it would never happen again. Never again. Yet he had lost his family again, and it was always his fault. When Dick needed his understanding as he tried to grow up, he panicked. The Batman scourge of the criminal underworld panicked, and threw it back in his face, taking Robin away from him, giving him to someone else. It had taken his near death to bring Dick back, but he'd never regained some of that absolute confidence he had had in his judgment. It was never the same. Jason, he had failed miserably. When he had seen him almost unrecognizable in the rubble, it made his blood boil with rage at himself. How could he do this? Put some of the dearest people to him in the firing line because of some misguided sense of vigilante justice. Whatever he did would never be enough. Alfred left him from a time, and then returned, but how could he expect so much of his loyal friend? Alfred deserved more. How many times had he taken him for granted? The servant always there when needed, prepared for every eventuality. How long would it be before one of his enemies thought to lash out against him? Everyone around him had sacrificed so much for his cause. Jason, his life. Barbara, the use of her legs. And Tim had given up the gift of a normal life in this insane world. Tim had sought it out, and Bruce should have stopped him. He lost his father to an enemy who should never have been given that opportunity. It was his fault. He could never let Tim blame himself. Bruce had heard people wish they could be like him, fighting the darkness in the city. But he would not wish this on anyone. He would give up his existence willingly if someone wanted to deal with his problems for him. The loneliness and the pain that once had been healed, but was now a rotting wound, stinking of bitterness. The eternal struggle with the Joker that wouldn't end until either one was dead. The responsibility of finding the solutions to every puzzle presented to him. The trust his family gave him with their lives, which he had failed again and again. He'd been in the cave that evening with Selena, listening while she talked to him about various subjects, ranging from her work in the East End to to what Lucius had been talking about at the last charity ball he had hosted. Simple things often escalated into something much worse, he had discovered. He had made a small, innocuous comment which had somehow made her furious with him. "Why do you always do this, Bruce?" He honestly didn't know, and sat frozen staring at the computer screen. "Why do you shut out everyone who cares about you?" He couldn't answer. He couldn't. "We've been playing this game for years." He moved his head slightly to glance at her, as he heard her voice soften. "Maybe back in the beginning I might have had a chance getting through to you, but now you've been the damn bat for so many years." As he heard her sigh, he turned and met her gaze. He could tell what was coming, and he felt numb. Selena kissed him lightly and walked back to the bikes. She smiled sympathetically and called quietly, "Bye, Bruce." Yeah, so that one was definitely a bit more heavy than the other stories. Well, pretty good writing, though. Alrighty, folks. With that, the first 5 fanfictions to kick off this series have been spotlighted. Each one of these stories was a pleasure to read and provided a nice little look into the style of fanfiction seen in the past. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a like, leave a comment giving your thoughts, and maybe even bless me with an oh-so-hallowed subscription. Regardless, definitely stay tuned for the next episode in this series. You won't want to miss it if you enjoyed this premiere. There's over 2 decades of homebrew writing content on the internet, and I am looking forward to spotlighting a ton of it. So stay tuned and stay cool, everyone.